So we bought a lot of strawberry plants this year. We thought we were buying 25 and we ended up with 75. So I built one planter that held about 30 and it wasn't enough. So I'm building a second planter here to hold another 30 or so. I think in the end it ended up holding about 25. We had some really nice weather, so I'm working outside. I'm currently remodeling my shop, so this was a good opportunity. The goal here was to build one planter out of 3 8-foot boards of 1x8 cedar. I like cedar because it ages nicely outside. It gets a nice gray look to it when it's been out in the weather. And I had a bunch left over. We built raised beds 2 years ago, and I have quite a bit of cedar left over. It's not extremely precise. This is a garden project, so I'm not too worried about the dimensions being exact. So it's pretty much just whatever I had available, I used up. And I assembled everything here with glue and screws. I used outdoor coated screws that I got at Lowe's. The regular gold screws that I had say specifically not to use them on cedar. And I used Titebond 2. I use Titebond 2 for pretty much everything. So I just used what was in my glue bottle at the time. I just used some cutoffs to space the slats out on the sides. So it should be about 1.5 inches in between them. The strawberries actually get planted through the sides of the planter, so I wanted to leave enough space to do that, to plant them through the sides. And 1.5 inches seemed about right. I pre-drill all of the holes for the screws because when you're putting a screw into the face of a board in cedar, they tend to split, especially near the end. So just to be safe, I drilled everything beforehand. So this is about the point where I realized that I had done something differently than the first planter I built, because the first one had skinnier legs. They were only maybe 1.5 inches wide, and I used full 3.5-inch legs on this, so there's not enough space to fit the boards on the bottom the long way. And I wanted to make sure that there was not too big a gap at the bottom, because this is going to get landscape fabric inside the planter and then it'll be filled with dirt, and I felt like the biggest span I wanted that landscape fabric to go across was maybe 2 inches. So I just rearranged everything and put the boards the short way across the planter, which I think actually worked better. The first time I did it, I was worried that I had about a 36-inch span with a lot of weight right in the middle, because the boards were attached a long ways, so they were only screwed in at the ends. And I ended up adding a third set of legs in the middle with another board going across the short way anyway. So doing it this way, I think that it's a little bit stronger. I'm a little bit less worried, and I didn't end up having to put in that, the extra 2 legs in the middle. So it used up even a little bit less material than I expected. there it is next to the original one I built. You can see the bottom boards run the opposite direction on the original one. But I think that it looks pretty good. It's a similar size. I think this one's a little bit smaller. The original one, I was just using up material I had left over from a composter that we disassembled that I'd built a couple years back that ended up not being big enough. So I used whatever material I could out of that, whereas this I had full boards left over. And now I'm putting in landscape fabric. This is, you know, just standard stuff you get from Lowe's, and I'm stapling it in with staples. I tried not to stretch it too tightly because I don't want the fabric to pull on the staples once the dirt is loaded in. I just kind of want it mostly secure. I don't want any weight really on those staples. In the original one I used a mixture of the same potting mix with some compost we had left over from the raised beds. But I was out of compost here, so I just used potting soil. Now the strawberries want to be planted kind of packed a little bit tighter than I thought. We bought our roots this year from Johnny Select Seeds, and the instructions said to pack the soil around the roots fairly firmly. We tried strawberries a couple years ago, and they just didn't do too well, so I don't know if that was part of the problem. So I tried to pack it in pretty tightly here, and I watered in between the layers just to make sure they were all soaked. Now these strawberries sat in just that plastic bin full of water for a couple weeks in between building the first planter and the second, and they did really well. They got a little bit leggy, but you know, they developed leaves and were growing really well just sitting in that water. So I'm hoping these do okay. I planted the original ones, you know, as soon as we got the roots in the mail. So we'll see how they do. Usually with strawberry roots, you don't get fruit the first year. You'll get it the second year, but these seem to start growing right away, so we'll see how they do. And I planted 3 in the middle. The roots reach quite a ways in, but I wanted to make sure I was using up as much real estate in the planter as I could. The other planter we put some alyssum on top, just a decorative planting. But we have, I think even after this we had a few roots left over. So I think the total amount we planted was something like 62 or 65 roots, and then we potted up a few and gave them to friends. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, click the thumbs up button. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more gardening and DIY videos.